everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we force our friends to watch our favorite movies and then see what awfulness happens next. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And continuing our theme in March, we're doing movies no one's seen. Surprise movies. Are we going to like it? Who knows?
Jen had two this month, so odds are not
not in her favor.
Hey.
So what did we watch, Jen? Tell us about what we watched.
So we watched Bay of Blood by Mario Bava, which is a film that I had never seen before. As you said, keeping with the theme. But I wanted to check it out because I mentioned in our previous episode, it's part of the giallo subgenre, which is like an Italian horror thing. And I wasn't super familiar with it. And I wanted to dive in. And this is one that I always saw referenced as like a classic and a must-see. And so that is why I picked it.
Can you explain to me what juggalo genre means?
Yeah. So I'm probably pronouncing it horribly wrong because I am not Italian, but it is giallo, which is Italian for yellow. So basically back in, I think it might have been like the 40s and 50s, there was a lot of like pulp novels that were popular in Italy that had a yellow cover, which is why yellow was the nickname for it. And they were kind of just, the trashy thrillers and mysteries, lots of like twists and turns and kills and some gratuitous sex maybe. And then once they started getting brought over into cinema, that kind of just became the name for those types of movies. So Mario Bava, who directed this one, is a big director in giallo, and so is Dario Argento. And they're kind of like the names to know. And that's like the extent of my knowledge on this prior to seeing this movie.
Fair enough.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've never heard of this. I've never heard the actual giallo. I have no idea. I mean, your explanation makes sense, but it doesn't make me view this movie any differently. You know what I mean? I don't understand the significance. Mm-hmm. And as is classic for me, I will not try to. I will stay ignorant and enjoy it.
Fair.
But I guess I'll go into my summary since I am talking. Okay, so my first guess was, so I'm guessing there's some kind of killer animal in the water a la Jaws, because it is a bay with blood. Then I said, wait, no. I actually wrote the words, wait, no.
Thinking out loud.
Yep, on paper, somehow. I said, the image is someone getting their throat cut by a machete or something, because we saw the image together.
Yes.
So then I said, I guess it's a killer stalking isolated campers that classic way. So that's, totally not right, but more right than a Jaws situation.
Yes, yeah. You self-corrected in the right direction.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a similar guess. I also had never heard of it. Only frame of reference I had was the movie poster that we saw briefly last week. So I kind of opted for the most generic horror movie slasher description. I wrote, a group of college students go to a cottage for a holiday and start getting killed one by one. And then I said, is this an Italian? That was the extent of my...
Pretty...
I was right for a segment of it.
You were partially correct.
Yeah.
So I think I knew a little more than I realized about the actual plot, because I wrote that it was a murder mystery where a rich lady is killed and then people start dying as they're trying to solve it. Which isn't necessarily true because we know who the killer is right away, but it's still just a rich lady gets killed and then everyone else gets killed. The end.
Yeah. I think I would have liked this more if it was a little more Agatha Christie locked room type of movie. Mm-hmm. A little bit more people in direct quarters and contact, because I got very confused very quickly about who these people were and what their objectives were. And a lot of them I couldn't tell them apart.
Me neither. The men.
It was all the men, yeah.
They all look the same.
Very vaguely similar.
I know we were watching it at the same time, and at one point you guys mentioned that, where you were like, I'm confused, I don't know what's happening. And I found that very, like, relieving, because I had been kind of multitasking for the first 20 minutes, and I thought I missed why all these characters were connected to each other. So I'm just watching it like, I'll catch up. I'll understand who this man is. And then you guys were like, who is this man?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's a product of storytelling in the 70s, perhaps, where it was just kind of like, they kind of assumed that we'll just pick it up as we go, but it just wasn't linear. There was no through line to follow. It's just like, oh, okay, so now these people arrived with their kids in a trailer. Like, where do they come from? Like, there's no sign on the trailer saying this family name or something to indicate. So yeah, it was hard to follow. I'm glad to hear everyone had trouble, because towards the end I was like, should I just look up the Wikipedia page a la Austin?
Yeah.
Do I need this spelled out?
I thought about doing that as well, because again, I thought I had missed something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, do I just look it up? And then I looked it up afterwards, and I saw that one of the things a lot of people say about this movie is it has a very convoluted plot. So I was like, okay, good. The world is in agreement with us.
That does make me feel better.
It will if you will tell me the plot, because I didn't find it convoluted so much as not there. I'm like,
yeah,
where is the plot?
I think it's convoluted in the way that they tell it. Like you said, it's not linear, so it kind of, something happens, and then something completely different happens, and then you get back to whatever happens like an hour later. But essentially, I will try to recap this plot. Let's see.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, good luck to you.
There is a rich lady, a countess, I believe,
yes,
who owns the bay, and she's married to a man, and that man wants to develop the bay and build a bunch of buildings and hotels and casinos or whatever, and make a lot of money doing that. The rich lady does not want to do that. There's another businessman who wants to do that. He tries to buy the bay from the countess. She tells him no. So he and his girlfriend/secretary decide they're going to seduce the husband to kill off the countess so that she leaves the bay to the husband, and then the husband, I guess, will sell to the businessman. Except the countess has an illegitimate son who lives in a cabin across the lake or whatever, who's somehow, I guess, knows this is happening. So then he kills the husband immediately after the husband kills the countess and disposes of the body in the bay. And then the sexy teens accidentally find the body. And so then the illegitimate son/fisherman guy has to kill them all. And then the businessman is like, I will help you cover this up if you sell me the bay. So he sells him the bay. And then the daughter of the husband shows up with her kids in the trailer and her husband. And they're like, we're going to get the bay and make all the money. Let's kill everyone. And then there's also a guy who plays with bugs and his tarot card wife who just accidentally get caught up in everything.
That was actually fantastic, Jen. You really summarized that well. But did the sexy teens actually find the body? Because I missed that.
The naked German one in the bay, when she was trying to
rope
climb out. Yeah.
Okay.
She got her foot caught on, like, the rope that was tying it down. So, yeah, the body floated up and its hand, like, grazed her thigh or something.
Because where else would it touch her?
Yeah. Surprised it didn't just boob grab her, to be honest.
Wah, wah.
I am impressed at that summary.
That was really good.
I can't decide if it was more or less confusing than the movie. Like, I can't decide if I understand the movie better or worse.
Yeah, as I was going through at a certain point, I was like, what am I saying? Is this correct?
No, I think you're totally right. I think my struggle is, again, I was trying to picture the characters as you were talking about it, and I could not, because I can't keep all the men straight in this movie.
You definitely tied it together for me, because I couldn't understand why the sexy teens got murdered. I was like, this is just drawing a lot of attention to this part of the world where you're trying to do your shady business deal. But then after that, I kind of let it go, because everyone's solution to every problem was to murder everyone. Yeah. So I'm like, I guess they just like murdering.
At a certain point, I think it was when, like, the murders were all happening at the end, where it was, like, the daughter and, like, her and her husband. And she's like, we have to see this through. We have to kill everyone. I was like, what is your plan? The entire town goes missing and now you own it? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are all these bodies gonna go? Like, what are you doing?
Someone's gonna investigate. Someone's gonna be like, they're missing. Their last known location was their home. Like, Simon lives there. Everybody lives there.
And it's not like, like her father went missing. That was one guy. Now this is like 15 people. This is the whole town have disappeared, including random tourists who were just driving through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, their car is somewhere. Like,
well, also, they don't ever try and kill anyone in a way that could be accidental.
No.
They're all super cut apart and chopped and stabbed and sliced and diced.
Yeah, but
so,
then...
like, they're gonna show up and be like, clearly this person didn't drown. Their head is missing.
But if you're gonna do that and you're gonna slice and dice, I want you to at least, like, completely chop up the body like it's chum and throw it out in the bay for the fish to eat,
Wow, Jen, you need to calm down.
No? Just me?
Maybe, I guess,
dispose of the bodies. That's all I'm saying. That
could have been their plan later, I guess.
Maybe they were gonna
see the next day plan. They were just like, let's murder these people, go home, take care of the kids for a bit. Later we'll come out, chum them up, do some fishing.
I do not believe any of these people had a next day plan. They were all just winging it, but I don't think murder is something that you should wing.
I think the one person who might have had a plan was the daughter of the Countess's husband.
She was in charge. Psycho.
Yeah, she was nuts. Her husband's like, hey, maybe we should. She's like, shut up and kill that man. And he's like, I don't want to. And she's like, you're going to do it or I'm going to kill you. And I can respect that. She knows what she likes. She knows what she wants.
I think she was probably my favorite character.
My favorite character was the child with the shotgun, but we'll get there.
We will.
Oh, boy.
I know.
I just had the most tenuous grasp of this movie the whole way through.
I was a little distracted by the 70s-ness of it all. In a good way, like I enjoyed it.
It was extremely 70s. It was great. I was extremely distracted by the dubbing situation, which...
I was very confused by it.
So I was expecting the movie to be in Italian, just because of the director. And then I think it was a while until there was any dialogue. And then when there was, it was clearly dubbed. I don't think they were speaking English. But then later on in the movie, there were actors who looked like they were speaking English, but it was still dubbed. And I was very confused and distracted the entire time.
So I have an answer for you.
I thought you might.
Jenn has a bit of a, hold on, what is this? Like a prop reference.
Whoa.
Whoa.
So this is Rue Morgue magazine, which is a horror magazine. They're based in Canada. They're really good. I recommend them. But this was their Halloween issue last year. It was all about Italian horror. So I was flipping through it today to be like, do you have anything to say about Bay of Blood? They actually have an interview with Dardano Sacchetti, who is a really big screenwriter who also wrote Bay of Blood. Okay. Really big screenwriter in the genre, in giallo. And they were talking about Bay of Blood. Sorry, I'm looking for where it is. And they were saying, like, what was the shooting like? Was Mario Bava, like, improvising a lot? And he was saying, no, this is the script exactly as it was written, which I'm like, buddy, don't take credit for that, Say that some stuff was moved around. But when he's talking about Bava, he says, his concentration was entirely on technique, making the shot perfect. He didn't even have the actors acting. He'd put them against a wall and shot many close-ups during the day. And at night, dramatic or not, instead of dialogue, he often gave them numbers to read, and then he dubbed the dialogue later.
Interesting.
Numbers?
So they just weren't saying anything.
Yeah, they were just not really acting, basically, is what it sounds like. He was sort of like, okay, stand there and just count to 10 out loud. And then he would film that, and that would kind of be it. So it sounds like he's one of those directors who's very about, like, the set needs to look right, the shot, the lighting, and all of that, and the actors, whatever, who cares?
Wow, that is strange. Because some of them looked like they were actually speaking words. I thought that the... Yeah. Oh boy.
It's probably a mix of both. I'm sure the whole movie wasn't like that, but just maybe specific scenes, and that's why it looked really dubbed, because
the tarot reader and the insect guy looked like it kind of matched up, but it didn't look like they were actually, the sound was coming out of their mouths, but it matched up with what they were saying. That's interesting and weird. It distracted me the entire movie. Like, I was so confused. I also don't like dubbed movies. So initially I was like, oh, I'm going to see if I can figure out if, again, assuming it was in Italian, I was like, oh, I got to see if I can figure out if I can, like, just switch this off and, like, I'd rather read subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's really interesting that he did it that way, and it explains what distracted me, which was there was no acting.
Yes.
I was fine with the dubbing because I actually had the subtitles on. So I was looking less at their mouths and more reading the dialogue, which is how I always watch everything now. I've lost the ability to focus on the television. So anyway.
A big subtitle supporter.
Thank you. But I was like, what is this movie? Because it is not an exercise in watching people live an experience and how they react to it. It was nothing about anything they did was an authentic reaction. There was so much murder and dead bodies, and there was never any screams or sounds or gasps. It was just like, I see a body. It is time for me to walk now. And I'm just like, that really bothered me. Because I'm just like, what am I watching? Is this supposed to be like surreal? Is it existential? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I had the same kind of thought. There was a lot of scenes exactly like that where someone would stumble upon a slaughterhouse and then kind of just turn around and like lean against a wall with a blank face, and I would be like, okay, is this, stylized? Is this a choice? Like, why is it, like, is the acting supposed to represent, like you're saying, like, is it supposed to be like more cerebral? Like, what's happening? But now it sounds like he was just like not as interested in the emotional aspects of the film, of this is why characters are doing what they're doing.
That's so strange.
Right, so if you're not focusing on the characters and why they're doing what they're doing, what are we supposed to focus on?
Those
like,
sweet
what
kills.
is the point? Just the like special effects, I guess.
Slice and dice.
Sure.
And also like the camera work, I think there's a lot of stuff going on there, like
not anything that penetrates my brain.
Right. But I mean, for him, like, I think that's what he's interested in. I know, Jackie, as a viewer, you're not going to care about that. You're going to care about, is this movie entertaining me?
Exactly. And I feel like it's a weird way to approach it when you're consider yourself a self-stylized artiste. And you're like, I'm doing this for the camera work. And I'm like, sure. But then why release it? Like,
it has to serve a purpose.
Yeah, if there's no point, if it's not going to make money, like, fine, keep your passion project for yourself and your loser art friends. But, like, why did it become a big thing? Why are you trying to make it, quote unquote, mainstream? I guess this one just kind of became that way. But it's not, there's no point that I can see and appreciate. And yeah, I am dumb about movies. I want to make that caveat. Don't listen to what I have to say and put any weight in it, but it's just like, I don't understand why you would make this.
I just want to jump off of that and maybe like quiz you guys a little. Do you know why this movie became such like a big must-see? Especially, let's say, like years later. What about this movie made it a good one for us to have looked back on? Because I don't know if you guys picked up on certain things.
Is someone famous in this movie?
I know that this is... I saw a couple of things while I was researching it. I don't know if this is what you're getting at.
I was like, yeah, you might have found what I was
But about some kills that are almost identical that pop up. I think it was in Friday the 13th? Or
yes.
Yeah.
Not only are there kills in this movie that are straight up in Friday the 13th, that whole section is Friday the 13th.
With the college students?
Yeah, of like sexy teens at the lake getting picked off one by one.
Fair enough.
Was this the first sexy teens get murdered movie?
Essentially, a lot of people, again, this is my research after the fact, are pointing to this as like the first slasher in the sense of what we know as a slasher. Obviously there was Psycho and stuff before, but this is like, you have the POV shots of the killer, you have the twists and turns and the red herrings, you have the sexy teens who are just there to get slaughtered, you have someone discovering all of the bodies and then getting killed. Like, it's sort of just like the blueprint for what comes later, and Friday the 13th kind of just like watched that middle section and was like, holy shit, I'm gonna make that movie.
Did you know that I've never seen Friday the 13th?
I did, because we're gonna be watching it at some point.
I have seen it, but I can't remember any of the specific kills.
Yeah, the one that I picked up on while we were watching it was when the killer comes into the house and the young people are having sex on the bed, and he, like, pulls and impales the two of them together. That is in, I think it's Friday the 13th Part 2.
Okay.
Maybe it's the first one, but I feel like it's the second. But I was just like, I've seen this before. And then when I was doing a little bit of reading, I saw, like, Friday the 13th cites this as an influence. A lot of people point to this as, like, this is where slashers of the 80s kind of got their inspiration. And I was like, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can respect that. It's not, like, I guess the slasher parts of it, like, the kills were fine. They were exciting enough. They were creative. And I can imagine at the time, especially if this is one of the first ones, then pretty shocking, I suppose. I guess by, like, today's standards, they're kind of nothing too out there, but fine. Like, I had no issues with the way people died. Like, it was fun enough, but it was kind of just the story part of it. I was just like, I needed something a little bit more. Even, like, you know, Friday the 13th, I could track that story. Like, even just that middle part, I'm okay with that. Bunch of teens, they get hunted. I don't need much more. Just that's enough. But I feel like we didn't even get that.
I wanted to try and jump in just because I wanted to try and steal this moment from Austin. And I want to talk about the soundtrack.
It's so good.
Yes.
It's terrible.
No.
I was so mad that there was basically silence whenever anyone got killed. There was mood music. There was no, like, tense music. I found that, to be honest, once I started thinking about the music, was pretty late in the game. But once I was started to be aware of it, I'm like, there's barely any music.
Oh, there was so much.
I felt like they totally lost so many chances.
I think Jackie and I watched a different movie.
One of my notes, I'm just checking, one of my notes, lots of music.
My first note, or my second note, is literally loving the score.
I think I was only paying attention to the music when, like, it was supposed to be tense and murders were happening. And once I started noticing, at least the last 3 or 4 murders were in complete silence.
Yeah, normally that jumps out at me as being, well, there was the one part that I'm thinking of specifically that really felt like too empty was when, sorry, I don't even know, like, I don't know any of their names. I don't know how to refer to anyone.
Simon was the illegitimate son.
Yes, that's the only one I got.
Okay.
Whenever the woman was in the bathroom, I think, and then was trying to close the door, and the killer was coming to her and, like, fighting with the door. And then she ended up stabbing him. That was brutally quiet and long. And, like, there weren't even grunts or, like, screams or any sound of force, any sound of struggle. He wasn't, like, pulling at the door particularly hard. That was where it really jumped out. I was like, at least we could use a little bit of music here. Like, this is very quiet. But in general, I thought the score was, like, the best part of this movie. Like, it was, I don't mind if there's no music, if it, like, is jolting, or if it, like I don't need music every time there's something tense happening, because not having music can be equally as tense. A good example of that is Jurassic Park. I think it's a good
example of anything is Jurassic Park.
Agreed.
Fair
we
point.
Are in agreement.
There's a really good moment. I think it's when I think it's in the car, the T-Rex attacking the car scene. There's no music in there. And, like, the score for that movie is amazing. This should come as a surprise to no one, but there's no music in that scene, or at least in the action point of that scene. And it's, like, it's as noticeable to me that it's missing and as effective. So it's interesting that we had very different experiences with the music here.
I mean, I never really noticed the music. Again, I'm very superficial. I'm going to stop saying that. Let's just assume that everything I say is based on the fact that I am superficial in terms of movies. But I never really noticed the music unless it's something, again, like you say, jolting, weird, unexpected. So the music that happened for most of the movie didn't penetrate my brain. But what penetrated my brain was the absence of it. And it seemed to happen, like, when Simon killed and strangled the woman.
Yeah.
When the bathroom scene, the silence really bothered me, because my experience with horror movies is just recent. So it's from what you've made me watch, and those are mostly recent, and they rely heavily on music to set the tone, right? So I'm used to that music cueing me how to feel. So then I'm not dreading of this murder. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just like, oh, okay, dude's getting murdered in complete silence. I have no emotion connected to this.
I wonder if there was more connection with the characters in general, if that would have been as annoying to you. Like, because I felt like because music is also something that you can kind of latch onto, like, even if you don't do it consciously, like, it's like you say, it's kind of guiding you through the movie. It's telling you when to be tense or when to relax, or, you know, it kind of builds you, or it, like, guides you through. But I wonder if there was, like, more substance to, like, the people that were watching die, if the absence of it would have actually been effective, which I hope was what he was trying to do, and wasn't just like, we don't need music here. I kind of doubt it. He sounds pretty detail-oriented. But
yeah, I think based on what Jackie's saying, too, where you picked up that it wasn't in a lot of the, like, kill scenes, I could see them doing that intentionally to try to be like, you're following the music, and now the absence of music is going to make it more tense. But because I think all of us were having trouble connecting with the movie, it was hard to connect with those scenes. We were kind of just like, what's happening now? It's quiet, and I just hear their, like, fingernails scratching at the door.
Yeah, but even like Austin said, there wasn't a lot of sound of struggle or screaming.
That's what
or
I mean. Like,
thumping.
one or the other. Like,
yeah, right. So it's either like I'm putting you really in this reality where there's no music, but you would hear the sounds of someone dying, or make it hyper aware of the music and make it spooky. But they decided to go in the middle and do neither.
Yeah,
and I think, like, I might be misremembering, but the very first death, when they kind of hang the Countess at the beginning to make it look like a suicide, I feel like there's a lot of music, and then it goes quiet as she's dying, but I feel like you hear her struggling a little bit, like she's gasping, and, like, her feet aren't touching anything because she's wheelchair bound, so her feet, she wouldn't be able to stand up, which is why they were able to hang her so easily. So, like, I feel like there was more sound to that death, but I don't necessarily remember.
I can't remember specifically what the sound was there, but I do remember feeling like that was probably the most upsetting death of the movie, maybe because it was also extended and, like, kind of saw the whole process.
That was my favorite.
Yeah.
Totally. I was like, oh, this could be like, as this is the first thing we see, I was like, this could be really cool.
Yeah.
Because I thought it would be more of a murder mystery. Like, everyone's trying to figure out who killed the Countess, and are they going to believe it's a suicide, et cetera, et cetera. But then right away, the killer is identified and also murdered. And it just, from there, it just went straight off the rails into, like, everyone's going to murder each other, which is its own kind of movie. But the Countess was cool. Like, her whole setup was cool, right? Like, she's rich, dripping in jewels. Something about the color palette of that scene, it looked like it was colorized black and white, which is, like, a really vivid look. And I was really into, like, I'm like, I hope she does something cool. And then she immediately gets murdered. But, like, I would have liked more Countess, personally.
Yeah, I liked what we got of her in the flashbacks, too, when the businessman is trying to be like, I'm gonna buy the bay from you or whatever. And she's like, fuck off, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 100 years old. I haven't sold it to anyone. I'm not selling it. Like, get out of my face. And then he's like, guess I'm gonna murder her. But I was like, she's such a badass. She's taking, like, no shit from this guy.
Right? She's like, I'm wheeling right over your toes. Like, straight up. You better move out of the way because the chair is going straight.
Yeah.
I really, one quick side note, though, the occasional flashbacks really screwed me up, too.
Yes.
Did you guys find that they weren't clear that they were flashbacks sometimes?
Were there more than one? Did I miss? Oh, no.
There was a couple.
Oh, no.
They were mostly, I think, centralized around the same point of the movie, which is when the secretary woman was, like, facing off with Simon, kind of, and he was like, you did this, and then she started being like, no, like, before he strangles her.
Yeah.
She's like, no, that's not true, but then she flashes back to, like, different scenarios with, like, the businessman and the Countess and the husband and all this stuff, so it's kind of, like, filling in the story, but really late in the film.
Why is... Okay, there were... maybe I'm lumping them all together in my head.
Yeah, so she flashes back to, like, when they're talking to the Countess, and then when her and the businessman, like, come up with the plan on how to kill her because they stole the Countess's diary. And then there's another scene where she's, like, flashing back to, like, being with the husband, I think in a car or something, like, making out one night. She's like, you have to kill your wife.
Oh, wow. All right, well, those have completely escaped.
That one was really bothering me, too, because that was such an important flashback, because we didn't know up until that point that the secretary was in on it and was seducing the husband of the Countess.
Because she's saying to Simon, like, oh, he's forced me. I didn't know that we were going to kill her. I just thought I had to seduce the husband and he was going to kill me if I didn't or whatever. And then it, like, cuts to her being like, let's fucking kill this bitch.
Okay.
Those were her exact words.
Yeah. They should have dubbed me in.
I would watch that movie. I would watch this movie if Jenn is dubbed in as each of the characters. I feel like there would be so much more acting.
But I don't know if I could do the voice of, like, the bug guy, because then I would just be like, playing with a cockroach.
That was a huge problem for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch any scene in their house because he is in a room full of bugs and moths on the wall.
And Jackie, what's your biggest fear?
I don't know why we have to get into this. This isn't a What's Jackie Hate podcast. It's a What We All Hate podcast. But yeah, I hate moths and butterflies the most of anything on this planet. And it's a very upsetting phobia because people, for some fucking godforsaken reason, love butterflies. They're everywhere. They're on every piece of crap decor I've ever seen. And I had a friend, yeah, look around your house, Jenn.
Yeah, I was like,
Is
do I
Jenn
have
making
a
sure?
butterfly?
One of my roommates in university, shout out Kyla, she's like an entomologist. She is into bugs. So she would have moths in frames.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we had multiple fights about that because it's my nightmare. So looking at this was like torture.
Yeah, we were on I think I was like a few seconds ahead of you when we were watching. And so I like reacted and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be bad for Jackie. And then like 5 seconds later.
You're just like, oh God. I literally had to watch with my hand in front of my face, blocking the man because he was like, had like a cockroach up to his eye or something.
Oh, at one point too, they like close up on his like board, and he's got like a pin through one, sticking it to the board, but it's still alive, so his like legs are going, and I was like,
Yeah, I think you were.
I want to vomit. I hate this so much.
I think you had left at one point, and that's what you
God.
missed. That's actually.
She had left. She saw the bugs, and she was like, "I'm out. I'll be back in 10."
Adios.
That's one of the few pieces of trivia that I have, but we're talking about it. Apparently, that was the one part that he regretted about the movie was the cockroaches pinned to the board.
Yeah,
Really?
I assume that was a live bug that they
Yeah.
just did that to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he regret weird shot right in the beginning of Simon like trying to eat an alive octopus in his boat? Like when you first see Simon in his fishing boat, when the guy's running around with the butterfly net, the first thing you see is him pick up an octopus and try and bite a chunk out of it.
You know what? Not as cool as Jean-Claude Van Damme biting a snake. Equally gross, but not as cool.
You're right.
100% agree because nothing can ever be that cool again.
I just had to bring it back. I had to
Please
have that
do.
moment.
That
We
was
need
like
at least one reference to Hard Target every time we record. I need it.
that was like the pinnacle of cinema. Nothing will touch that snake scene in Hard Target.
Oh, I'm so glad that we watched it together too. If I had been at my house watching it alone, I would have been like, there's no one to talk to about
We
this.
all would have been like screaming in our houses, being like, "What?"
We had to wait 2 days to talk about it.
That was the hardest 2 days of my life.
Anyways,
It wasn't,
this
but like,
movie-
you know, it was hard.
I feel
Yeah,
like
we should
haven't-
watch Hard Target again as a palate cleanser from this movie.
I feel like we haven't even touched on the movie yet.
I mean, what? Okay, can we talk about the first time that we meet? Like you were saying, Simon's eating the octopus after he's fighting with the bug guy who's trying to catch a mosquito, I think, with a butterfly net. And then they have like a 10-minute conversation about what it is to murder.
With their faces literally 1 inch apart. It looks like they're gonna kiss all of the time. It's
And
very
he's like,
awkward.
You were going to kill a bug, and then he's like, bugs do not have souls. It is not the same as killing a man, or whatever. And he's like, well, I kill what I eat, and then like bites an octopus. And I was like, what is happening?
This is not
Who
your
are these
average
people?
conversation. You know, like, hey, good to see you, Bill. I must murder a man.
And again, because we've said before, like, this movie doesn't really, like, introduce its characters.
Not at all.
There's no context for who these people are, what they have to do with anything. Like, are they the main characters? No, because after this scene, we don't see them again for another, like, 45 minutes. So they're just having this weird conversation about life and death, and then it just cuts to these, like, German teens going for a car ride, and I'm like, what was the mosquito about? Was there one mosquito in all of Italy that he was trying to catch?
Also, you cannot tag and release a mosquito That's not a thing that they have the technology to do in the 70s or even probably now.
Yeah.
Second of all, I really enjoyed the mosquito camera point of view. I don't know if you guys noticed. That was pretty fun. But third of all, in the exact scene you're talking about, that's when you first see the daughter and her husband, I believe, and they're like spying on them with binoculars. Do you remember there's like a couple on top of the hill spying on the entomologist with the binoculars?
Oh my god, I did not pick up on this, Jackie. That's
Right.
the daughter!
Yeah. So I couldn't figure out who those people were for the longest time. And for some reason, it really jumped out at me to like remember who they were. So I'm just confirming it makes sense for it to have been the daughter and the husband, right?
Yes.
We all agree that that's because that was also very annoying. We don't know who these people are. Why would they be spying with binoculars? And then they also don't show up for another 40 minutes.
See, I didn't even like catch those people with the binoculars, like, so when the daughter showed up towards the end of the movie, I was like, this is really late to introduce the next, like, big plot point of, like, I am the daughter and I'm here to slaughter the town.
I mean, it's like I didn't even watch the movie.
Yeah, Austin was like, wait, what? There was a daughter?
A part of me is like, I guess I need to watch this again, but I won't.
I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier before we recorded today that, like, it's been, 2 days since we watched it? 3 days? And it's like, it's completely left my head. I, like, could barely remember it.
A couple things stood out to me as being like, oh, this is awful. This is like very of the time. It's very unacceptable now. Like, it's funny how tastes and attitudes have changed fairly quickly. I mean, 70s is a long time ago, but like the whole like secretary businessman relationship and the way he treats her and the way he talks to her and like her whole needy baby vibe and his like, I do what I want businessman, the power dynamic, it all just felt real gross.
Yeah.
Their whole situation, I just was like, this is just bad. Like, I don't like watching this. I don't like this relationship. They're both, I didn't realize, I guess, at that point that the secretary was in on it. So I thought she was just being like played. And most of the time I don't pick up on this stuff or like, it doesn't bother me. I can go with the movie and try and accept whatever point it's trying to make. But this one I was just like, ew. They introduced them right off the bat. I was like, I don't like these characters. I don't like the storyline. I did not enjoy that. And the same thing happened with the sexy teens, where nameless teen A and nameless teen B, the boy and girl, he kept trying to get the other girl alone. And she was like, no, I don't want to.
Said I'm not ready a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then she went so far as to drag the other guy with them and not let him leave so that she wouldn't get basically assaulted. And then at the end, she has sex with him. It seemed like she was into it, but...
Yeah, but you're right, because we don't really see, like, what happens with them for a while, because we go back to the killer and Brunhilde, and then it comes back to the house, and the third wheel guy is kind of by himself while the other two are having sex, so it's kind of like, okay. I guess we were leading up to this, but it all just felt kind of like, you're right, like icky, the way the guys were talking and stuff, and it is that kind of dated 70s thing, but like... At one point, the guy who's trying to get the girl alone, I think that girl was, like, French, because he said something to his friend where he's like, oh, you told me you were going to take the German girl, and I get her. And I'm like, okay, this is not how it works. They are individuals with, like, thoughts and feelings and personalities, and they get to decide if you're going to get with them or not. Like, you guys don't get to make a pact, and then they just have to deal.
You actually made a really good point, where it's just all the situations with men and women and their dynamics left an icky feeling. And for some reason, maybe because I didn't find much else to latch onto, the whole experience is summed up in me as a, ugh. Just I didn't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty gross. But there were boobs.
You called it. My literal first note is a quote from Jackie just saying, I predict nudity.
I mean, it is the 1970s and it is European, so yes, we are getting some full frontal nudity.
Can we talk about Brunhilde's dress that was basically didn't even cover her waist? Like, what was this item of clothing she's wearing?
And like, she strips to go skinny dipping by herself in the bay. Okay, whatever.
No.
Finds the corpse, and then, like, thankfully puts her clothes on as she's running away. But, like, not her underwear, because she's running in that teensy little dress with her ass just hanging out. And I was like, oh, no.
I mean,
this comes down to my, like, problem with what people do and what they wear in movies, where I'm like, yeah, you found a dead body. That's bad. You put your clothes on. Like, she would put her dress on in a way that covers her body before she runs. Like, the same as, like, how you put your hair in a ponytail when you're in an action movie. Like, it's just things you do. It's inconceivable because she's constantly struggling with her dress, and it's just not something you want to worry about when you're racing through the woods.
And at this point, like, she has seen a dead body, which, yeah, sucks. Scary. But it's dead. Like, this isn't someone chasing her where she doesn't have time to put her dress back on. She could have taken the minute to, like, fully redress and put your clothes back on, and then ran to find your boyfriend and been like, hey, I found a dead body.
I mean, theoretically, but she does not actually have time to do that.
Yeah, she doesn't. Yeah, you're right. In the end, she could have taken the minute to put her clothes on because she was still going to end up dead.
Yeah.
She's getting dead.
She also did the thing that I love/hate so much in movies, where she's like in the abandoned house where they had all been hanging out, because the friends all just left her when she was in the bay.
They abandoned her for seemingly hours.
They did not tell her where they were going, so they just left. So she goes back into the abandoned house, and she's like calling for the guy, and she's like, I forget what his name was.
There was Bobby. There was a Bobby. Was it him?
Maybe he was Bobby. So she's like, Bobby, where are you? And then there's like the sounds of someone else in the house, like someone walking around but not responding to her. And she's like, oh, Bobby. And it's like getting closer. And I'm like, that's not fucking Bobby.
Yeah, like lesson 1, if they don't say, yeah, it's me, Bobby, be a little bit concerned because that ain't Bobby.
Yeah. Like, he's not just intentionally ignoring you and creeping behind a corner waiting for you to come over. Like, why would he do that? I mean, maybe to rape you, because these are kind of creepy guys, but still, get the fuck out of that house.
Right, and this isn't the era of headphones, so like, there's nothing blocking his hearing.
That's true. She also had, like, again, I guess this is, like, the first, so it's not a trope yet, I guess. But she has, like, the worst chase scene where it's just like, stop looking behind you. Like, you're probably not going to outrun him anyway, but at least give it a shot. Like,
did you guys also find it a little confusing understanding what locations people were in?
Yes.
Because there was an abandoned house that I thought at first was the Countess's house.
Yes, we had.
And I was like, was the Countess murdered like 20 years prior? You know, like, is this time shifting? Like, it was not clear that it was abandoned properties on the bay, and then they leave that property and go to the Countess's house, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where, like, the sexy teens were hanging out. But
and
you're right, like, I don't really know what that abandoned property was, or, like, where it was in relation to everything else. Because it seemed like it was just next door. Like, it was on the Countess's property, almost. But then, like, what was it? They said it used to be a dance club, so I think it was, like, the husband had tried to build up this bay at one point, and then it failed.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I think it was, like, a failed dance club. But then, again, why is that at the Countess's house? Like, I mean, if they're trying to build up the bay, like, that should be a little further away from, like, the mansion.
And also the mansion, they break into this house that is, like, fully furnished and rich, and, like, someone clearly lives there, and they really make themselves at home. Like, it's so weird to me. Okay, sure, you're breaking in, it's titillating. You break in, you look around, you mess with some stuff, and then you leave. Because you're like, someone's going to come home and maybe murder me. But instead they have sex in the Countess's bed for, like, literal hours, by the way.
Yeah,
the sun
like
sets. Poor Bobby's like, I guess I'll just hang out in the living room and look at records for 7 hours.
I was gonna say, what is Bobby doing? He's just sitting in the living room listening to music. I'm like, first of all, go find the German girl that you abandoned in the lake.
She'll probably have sex with you. She's very free with her body. Like, why aren't you looking for Broomy?
Yeah, even if she's not going to have sex with you, like, you've abandoned her for half a day. Like, she might be lost. She might be hurt. She probably drowned in that bay, and you're never going to know because you just hung out and listened to your friends have sex. Like, what are you doing, Bobby?
Yeah, well, Bobby has a reality check.
You know what his reality check was? An axe to the face. Or whatever.
Yeah, he did get... Every time... Okay, it doesn't happen often, but every time anyone gets an axe to any body part, I always think of the killer being like, I need to ask you a question. Ask.
That would have made this movie a million times better.
Right?
This
Okay,
killer...
so we're gonna dub this movie, right? We're gonna redub it. We're gonna make it better. It's a really wasted opportunity. A killer making puns might make me enjoy a horror movie. Like that might be the thing that tips me over. It might be. But they gotta be solidly good puns.
I mean, I already have a puntastic one coming your way, maybe two, so we'll see.
This is like briefly going back to when the college kids were alive, but I did love, and I made a note of the scene where they're just dancing to no music. There's no like diegetic music happening. They're not listening to anything as far as I could tell. They're just dancing. Right. And they weren't even like chanting, like, go Broomy, go Broomy. It was just like, she's like, wee, I hear the music in my mind. Maybe they were all just really high on LSD. I was just thinking like there must have been more involved in that, but it was very funny to me. Honestly, I liked Grimhilda. She seemed like a cool girl.
I have that written too. I'm like, she has a wild, adventurous spirit. She's like, doesn't need anyone to come with her. She's like, I'm gonna go swim. I'm gonna go run.
She's here on this weird cross-country adventure to have fun, and these, like, lame-os keep trying to ruin it all by not going skinny dipping with her. Yeah. But she's like, doing my own thing.
I'm going skinny dipping without you.
Yeah.
Right. Who wouldn't want to go skinny dipping with her? She's hot.
Yeah. She's like, me and this corpse are going to have a grand old time, and you can suck it.
I could see why she didn't want to be around Bobby, though, because when I finally looked at Bobby, like, really looked at Bobby... His hair is out of control.
What shape was it? It was like
all of them.
It's like if someone had a really long afro, like a long one, a big one, and then put a tight hat on the top.
Yes.
And then took the hat off. So it's like, it's a shape of an afro on his head. It gets like into almost like a ponytail ring, and then it explodes out again. It was very upsetting. I'm like, okay, Brumhilda, I'm understanding you. You're like, yeah, I'd rather swim with a floating dead body than have Bobby put his paws on me. Like, I get it.
That's fair.
Maybe she and the French girl, like, pulled each other aside, and the French girl was like, I'm taking Bobby, and Brumhilda's like, okay, I'm taking that guy. But the guys had it flipped because they wanted the other girls, and then that ruined the whole thing. If the guys had just let the girls call the shots... then maybe none of them would have been sliced in two.
Story of Western civilization. May I just say.
So I have a question for Jackie. Or
me?
Not so much a question, but a conversation.
Fine, I'll go.
Yeah, you've been replaced.
No,
I know everything.
I would like Jackie to speak to the medical accuracy of some of these kills.
Yes. My favorite topic. First of all, the blood consistency is incredibly poor. It is not water. It is not pink water, which is what this movie relied on to get across the concept of blood. I way prefer when they go super, super dark.
I know what you're saying for realism, but I do love that in this era, a lot of the fake blood is kind of pink. I just love it. I don't know. I think it's so fun, where it's like bad old effects, where it's not even blood looking. It's just like Kool-Aid. It's so fun.
Isn't that just confusing? Because everyone knows what blood looks like. Like, it's not a secret that blood is dark red, right? Like, most people have seen a bag of blood or something. Like, I mean, Jen's cocking her head.
Have most people have seen a bag of blood?
I feel like most people have probably seen
I thought that was right.
Blood.
A bag of blood? I mean, it's
you donate blood,
not like a grocery bag.
No, I know what you mean, but I'm just saying, like, you really only see that if you were donating or getting a blood transfusion, which is some people, but I wouldn't say everyone.
You know when you go to the grocery store and you get a bag of milk and then you take it out and it's actually just blood. Are you saying that hasn't happened to you? Okay, sorry, but you've cut your finger. Everyone knows what blood looks like.
I agree. Everyone has seen blood. I was just questioning that everyone had seen a bag of blood.
I'm realizing now that's... Okay, fine. Next time I have a bag of blood, I'm going to take a picture of it and send it to you. And you will never be able to say, I've never seen a bag of blood. But that's the point, right? Like, everyone's seen blood. So you know that it's dark red. So, but was it like a movie ratings, like, board where you couldn't have the blood look too real because that would be too scary? So they were like, make it look not real?
I don't know. I do know that, I think we mentioned this in the Evil Dead episode, but there have been cases in the past where special effects looked too realistic. They got, like, brought to court to be like, did you actually kill this man? Austin's
This one was
pointing.
prosecuted. This one was prosecuted in court in the UK.
Nice. Nice.
This movie?
Yeah.
For having very unrealistic deaths?
Remember, was it in Evil Dead that we were talking about the video nasties in the UK and that he had to go to court for it? So did this one. I don't know what the result of the Evil Dead one was, but this one was one of the few.
I can't imagine anything in this movie that looked realistic.
But it's the first one, right? It's not that it's realistic. It's just that it's overly shocking, overly gross, and it's like not something that was common at the time.
Okay. So they weren't really concerned that someone actually died. They were just like, our sensibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it was one of 39 films to be successfully prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act in the UK.
Ugh, what a boring time to be alive.
Right.
So, in terms of the reality of these deaths, a lot of the time it happens in movies where people die too quickly. Like,
yes,
you don't die just from, you don't like, your throat isn't cut and then you immediately fall over dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's 4 minutes while your heart pumps out your blood. And like, unless you're shot directly in the heart, like if you're stabbed anywhere that's not really your heart, or like your brain, you don't die immediately. It's either blood loss or you're going to get an infection that kills you. But like if you're stabbed random places, you don't just die.
See, I had this problem where I think it was the daughter. She stabs the businessman like in the leg with the scissors after that like bathroom scene. And then he, like, collapses, and then he's supposed to be dead for, like, the next 20 minutes. And then he ends up getting up because he wasn't really dead. But I was like, he's just stabbed in the leg, and they're all just like, look at what they did to him. And I know, Jackie, you're going to say there's one artery that if you hit it, you will die immediately. I've seen enough horror movies to know about that one artery.
I wanted to say that I looked up the Wikipedia about this. And yes, it says that she supposedly stabs him in the femoral artery, which would be how you would die. However, that's on the inside of your thigh, and she clearly stabs him on the outside. So I fully don't understand what they were intending to imply here. Like, yeah, he's stabbed in the outside in the meat sack. Like, that's where there's nothing important on your outer thigh. Literally, you can cut a chunk out of your outer thigh, and you'll be fine. You're not hitting anything major.
So you just have an ouchie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would hurt. I think it would hurt. I don't know. I went to the dentist today, so I know pain. But I mean, I don't understand if they were trying to say, yeah, he got hit in the femoral, he's dead. Or if they're trying to say, oh, we're tricking you into thinking he got hit in the femoral and he comes back. But if that is the goal, they should have stabbed him on the inner thigh. So like, I just don't, none of it didn't track. None of it was sensible.
And like, the other characters were reacting to him like he was dead. And if it were me, and they were like, oh my God, we killed this man, I'd be like, how? You only hit him in the leg. Yeah. And then when he does come back later, he's still, like, crawling on the floor, like, clearly, like, not able to stand. But I'm like, you've got one other leg that wasn't stabbed.
I was going to say, if it's your femoral, you bleed out in 4 minutes. And if it's your outer thigh, then you're basically fine. And your adrenaline should carry you through. So, right? Like, it just doesn't...
Yeah.
I can't figure out what would happen.
I think I assumed she had stabbed him more than once. Do we only see it once?
We see the leg stab.
But do we see... Yeah, do we see... I clearly don't remember this movie at all. Do you see it after that? Like, do you see her leave? Or does it cut to something?
It cuts.
Sorry.
So I was just wondering if maybe she was stabbed him a couple more times. Because then when he crawls out, it looks like he was like... I don't know. I assumed he was like stabbed in the stomach or something. But I can't remember the editing.
She stabs him through the door, and then it cuts. They don't show her even leaving the house.
Okay.
And then they show him prone later. But they just zoom in on one wound on his outer thigh.
Oh, okay.
I don't see any other wounds at that point. But it's also kind of silly because when they show that outer thigh wound, there's like very, very little blood.
Right.
There's no pool of like 6 liters like you would expect. It's weird that they try and posit that has incapacitated him. And maybe he's dying. Because it's just, there's nothing that explains that. And I guess it's all so that he can appear later. Be like, boo, I'm not dead, bitch. But I don't like it, and I don't like that it implies that everyone's really stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a, like, life or death fight. People, I feel like they would be able to critically think a little bit better.
And especially, like, that's the daughter who's trying to murder everybody. She's, like, killing everyone, and she's like, I stabbed a guy in the leg once, so I'm a killer.
Yeah. Old news. You just made a cool point though. Like, do we like that the real bad guy in this movie is a chick?
It
I
gives
like
it a
that.
little point in the pro column.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple bad guys in the movie, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, no one's good.
except Broomhilda.
Yeah.
I mean, she has sex and gets naked, so that's like rule number 1 in horror movies, right? You die. Sorry, she doesn't
Right.
have sex, but she's implied to be free with her body.
She did let that corpse grow per, so. Can I go on a brief tangent? Jackie, you were mentioning, like, the femoral artery or whatever?
Femoral.
That one artery?
Your femoral.
Femoral. Thank you. Have you ever seen a movie, I assume the answer is no, called Would You Rather?
I have.
Oh my god, okay. My friend and I make fun of this all the time. It's a really bad horror movie. It's like a dinner party with like a serial killer running it or whatever, and like you're given like would you rather like do this or do that, but it's all like fucked up things, but they have to do it or else they'll die or whatever. And at one point they're like, I forget what it is, but one of the things was like stab the person next to you. So they're like, okay, just stab her in the leg because it'll be fine. And then someone goes like, just make sure you don't hit that one artery that will kill her. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to stab her at random in the leg. And then they stab her and they're like, oh no, you hit that one artery. And like, she just bleeds out and dies. And my friend and I like died laughing. It's so stupid. We're like, how do you just accidentally hit that?
I do want to actually say that I think I'm on the side of the movie here because it's a thick ass artery that's like this thick and it's quite close to the surface on your inner thigh. And so it's quite easy to damage it. I mean, if you're stabbing someone in their entire leg, yeah, that's like, if you're thinking about how wide your leg is, it's a 1 in 12 shot if you're going side to side. But I've actually had a donor who was carrying their garbage to the garbage can and had a broken wine bottle in it.
Oh no.
And he cut his own femoral artery with it and he bled out in his driveway.
Oh my god.
So like things happen.
Holy
but like
shit.
it's a very like that's a very sensitive, dangerous part of your body.
So
Okay,
that
I'm wearing
story's
padding from now on.
horrifying. Yeah, I'm gonna have nightmares forever. But I will still make fun of this movie because they could have just stabbed her in a different part of the leg.
Wasn't the other premise of that, it was that there was like one guy who was paralyzed from the waist down, so they just kept stabbing him at one point? Am I making that up? I've seen this movie.
I don't remember.
That's a
It's
good
a really
plan.
bad movie. All I remember basically is the like, don't hit the artery. Oh no, I hit the artery. And then the ending is stupid.
So if we have to stab each other in the leg, let's all remember
Aim for the
outer
outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Isn't
your
that
femur's
like-
in the middle, obviously.
Yeah.
Go more lateral to that. I want to say one more thing on the pro column of this movie.
Okay.
No,
So you're-
Jack, I'm gonna make you watch it if you keep defending it.
Just saying, so your femoral artery is like any artery in your body. It has offshoots. So if you hit one of those, it's obviously not as dangerous because it's a much smaller diameter vessel. But, you know, if you hit one of those main arteries,
You fucked.
yeah. Like
I
your
will-
legs need a lot of blood. They're pretty big, right? There's a lot of
You
arteries.
know what? Fair, but I will also say, I'm pretty sure these characters are the ones that decided to stab in the leg. They could have gone for an arm.
Right, and I also find it really weird that if you were
No.
going to stab someone in the leg, you go inner thigh.
They
Like,
didn't. They had to stab in the leg. I'm pretty
Was
sure.
it the leg?
I think they
Because
had...
I'm pretty sure they decided the leg because they thought that wouldn't kill her. And then someone was like, as long as you don't hit that artery.
the
Don't
one
make me
magic
look up
artery.
this
I'm
shitty movie.
pretty sure they had to stab in the leg.
Hey guys,
Okay.
if we get into this situation, you have my permission to cut off my pinky toe.
Ooh.
Okay? Like go as distal on my body as possible and just chop a little bit off. I'll be okay with it.
Oh, you're right, Austin. It does say they had to stab them in the thigh. Sorry.
I'm just happy I was right. Jen was wrong. I know horror movies better than she does.
Boom! The crown has been
Yeah.
passed.
That's fine, Austin. You can be the horror movie queen, but that means I will be expecting you to watch all of the horror movies.
Oh no, I don't like this.
Uh-oh. The tables have turned.
Is there anything else about the movie we have to talk about?
I have one small thing that I thought was very strange. I know that their intentions when the daughter and her husband show up on the scene, they make it clear early on their intentions are to murder. But why did they go visiting a bug guy's house at like 11:30 p.m. and start chit-chatting about the island life?
I mean,
I was like, why did you involve these people? Why are you here? Why are they inviting you in? And why would you start any of this in the middle of the night? Literally the middle of the night.
yeah, I was confused by just the bug and tarot reader characters, what their roles were anyway. I assumed maybe it's because I didn't see the shot earlier in the movie of the, or didn't clock the shot earlier in the movie of the daughter and her husband watching. But I just assumed they were looking for information. I don't think I made the connection that it was the middle of the night, so why are they doing this? I just assumed they were going there under the guise of like, who else is around here? What's the deal? Like trying to
Why did they decide to kill them?
Because they got
were
involved,
just in the way, yeah.
But like they didn't even, I guess it's just because they saw them talk to Simon?
They saw, I think the husband saw the body in the house of the businessman who wasn't really dead yet with the leg wound. And so they were like, oh, they know that we've killed a guy, so we have to kill them. I just realized we haven't talked about the ending. Should we talk about the ending?
Yeah. Was that ever a terrific ending?
I mean, really didn't see it coming.
No,
at all. Wow, tell us the ending, Jen. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so the daughter and her husband, they had just killed everyone else in the movie who was still alive at this point. They killed Simon, the businessman, the secretary, the tarot wife, the bug guy. They're like, done all these murders, and now we can go back to our trailer where we left our kids by themselves because we're terrible parents too. And we'll just deal with all of this later. We found the paperwork that proves that we own the bay, and I don't know what we're going to do with these bodies, but that's tomorrow's problem. Let's celebrate. And then their neglected child from the trailer just grabs a shotgun and shoots them, and then is like, yay, let's go play in the bay, because we just killed mom and dad.
She's like, oh wow, they're really good at playing dead. And then they... So is this just like a commentary on like gun ownership and like irresponsible gun ownership, that you can't just leave your guns laying around because children will get to it thinking they're toys? Because that was my takeaway.
See, I took away that the parents were so neglectful that they never taught the children anything, including that these are like not fake.
Yeah.
Because again, these parents did just leave them overnight by themselves in a strange town in a trailer.
With a loaded shotgun.
Yeah. And the windows were open.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I don't understand what anyone could have been thinking. I am assuming the kid thought it was a toy gun.
Yeah.
Sure. These children are innocent. I don't think they had murderous intent, even though they were raised by murderers.
No.
I don't understand how one shotgun blast would kill both of those people outright. And I don't understand leaving your kids in the caravan with a loaded shotgun in the middle of the woods for literally 16 hours.
Yeah.
And the kids are awake while they're walking away. It's not like they're like, okay, we'll put them to bed, we'll sneak out, do our murder business, and sneak back in before they wake up. Like, the kids are at the window of the caravan watching them walk away.
So when the parents are first leaving the caravan, they were having this conversation. And at this point, again, because we didn't know who anyone was, what was going on, I wasn't sure of these people's relationship to one another. I did not realize yet they were husband and wife. But he was saying something of like, oh, we should have left the kids with their aunt. And then she's like, yeah, they'd be better off or something like that. Or no, she was like, we should have left them with their aunt. Whatever, something about they should have been left with the aunts, but then instead they brought them here. And now I'm like, why didn't you leave them with their aunt? If there wasn't a responsible adult who could have been watching these children, why on earth did you think you had to bring them to the town with you to do these shady dealings?
Interesting point.
Seriously, you should have looked for any alternative to having them be with you / in the line of murder / witnessing murders.
Yeah.
Like it would have been better if you got a hotel room in town and left them there. Like, leave them anywhere except for where you left them.
Leave them with a dog somewhere.
They were just clearly terrible people all around, which is fine. And then they got it, and now their kids are going to go play in the bay, and then
probably
nothing good is going to happen with these kids because there's no adults left in town because everyone's dead.
Dude, they're totally going to find murder bodies. These kids don't have a chance at being normal. First of all, they kill their parents. But second of all, they're going to see, like, a bathtub full of dead teens and just be like,
And
There
also,
goes my
like,
psyche.
how long are they going to be living on their own in that trailer until someone comes to town looking for people?
Right, who's gonna come? Nobody knows the teens are there. Nobody knows daughter and husband are there. Simon has no friends. Entomologist and tarot lady clearly are quite self-contained. Like, no one is coming to check. That's
Yeah.
actually super dark, and I never thought about that. These kids are going to die of exposure quickly.
Yeah, if they don't drown in the bay.
Or shoot themselves by accident with a shotgun.
Totally.
Or not by accident, because they're going to be like, let's play the fun play dead game. Let me shoot you in the face.
Fair.
Whoosh. Maybe they'll become like weird feral, like swamp kids.
Maybe they'll be raised by the mosquito that the bug man never caught.
Well, these kids have a real bright future. Happy ending.
A wild ride.
It was weird. Like, again, I wanted some kind of point. And the point of this movie is everyone sucks, everyone gets murdered, everyone dies. There's like no clear winner. There's no one to root for. There's no one to feel sad that they die. It's just like a bunch of jerks cleaning up the gene pool one by one.
Right? Like, who would you even say the main character is?
I thought it was going to be the Countess. And like, I'm like, the Countess is the impetus for everything to happen, but she's very short-lived. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say for similar reasons the businessman, because he's the one that kind of puts everything in motion, and we see him a little at the beginning and then a bit more at the end. But I still don't think he's the main character, because you're not following him for the whole movie. He's just... Yeah, he puts things in motion.
Everyone's just kind of in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's that. Is there anything else we need to hit on this?
I think that's all I've got, really. I mean, we'll get to more, I think, in our high points and low points.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to keep this in, but I was just looking through my notes and I made a note of the line when the daughter says, all we have to do is get rid of Simon. And I wrote, great. Who's Simon?
I remember you said that too. I was like, you really, like, oh, that's all? All you have to do is murder another person? Like, shouldn't you be a little horrified at all the murder that's happened so far? Like, no, just business as usual. Just one more thing on my to-do list. Murder Simon.
Yeah.
Also, Simon is, like, viscerally awful. Like, his face, very upsetting.
I did feel like Simon would be a very, like, traditional killer in other versions of this movie, because he was so fucking, like... He's the adult son of the Countess, but he's an illegitimate son, so he has to live in a house separate from the Bay, and, like, it's kind of whispered about, I guess, that he's the son, and, like, not fully recognized, but then also he's, like, weirdly protective of her, I guess, because he kills the husband, and she has him, like, working for her. Like, it's a very clear, like, we're setting up a future serial killer kind of thing. So I'm glad he got to live to his full potential by killing all those teenagers.
Mm-hmm. I really did, actually, now that you say that, without really thinking about it until this moment, I totally bought into that narrative of the movie early on. That it was just going to be multiple people being targeted by Simon. So maybe it is kind of a fresh, interesting take that everyone sucks and is murder obsessed. But I would have also I think if it was Simon stalking and killing people, I would have liked it better. I wanted it to be clearer. That's all. I think it's time for high points and low points.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who would like to go first?
Once again, it was difficult to choose a high and a low because I was never invested in this movie. I had moments where I was literally looking around my house looking for something else to take my attention because I was just like, okay, well, we get it. You're staring blankly into space. Cool. So it didn't grab me. So I put as my high point the old lady. Because she's cool, man. She's just got a cool vibe. She's rich. She's wearing jewels and makeup. She looks sad, which is a bummer. I mean, if you feel like your husband's capable of murdering you, which I think you feel that from the general way they interact with you, that's kind of a bummer. And her illegitimate son sucks. So she's kind of got a bad life, but she carries herself cool and she looks cool. And I was like, this is my future, but I'll be very poor. So I enjoyed watching her be rich and cool. So the old lady gets my vote. And then I put for the low point was being confused the whole movie. It's pretty generic to say that, and we've already touched on it a lot, but I never got swept away, which is what I'm looking for in basically any type of movie. remove me from the reality of my life, please. And this one didn't hit that.
Yeah, I think I'm similar, although I think my high point is going to be the music. I know Jackie hated it, but I made multiple notes of really liking it. I just liked that it was like a really full orchestral score. Like it was very dramatic. It was unexpected given how shoestring of a budget the movie was. So I was impressed that they had. I mean, saying that now, it may have just been fair use music. I don't know. I know that's what Night of the Living Dead had, was just fair use music. But this, I don't know. I really liked it. I also really liked, I think the best death, we already touched on it, but is the Countess's death. I think that was also a high point for me right off the top. So it was just downhill from there. But my low point was the dubbing. It was extremely distracting for me. And I think I'd probably like it, maybe wouldn't bother me as much if I watched it again, knowing now what it was. But just like the disjointedness of it, I find dubbing, like I said before, just always distracts me. I'd rather read subtitles. So not really having that option was really frustrating, and it like really took me away for more than it should have. I was more annoyed by it than I should have been. I recognize that, but I think that was my low point.
Yeah, I think similarly, my high point was kind of the opening. Like, the Countess's death was really cool, but then I also did like that you saw who the killer was right away, and then he was also killed. I felt like that was a good, like, twist on the opening kill, and that kind of set me up for maybe a different movie, because I thought it was going to be something a lot more, like, mystery-based, but I did think it was a really effective opening. And then my low points, I guess it's either that we were all confused, or that there were too many bugs.
Oh my god, as if I missed that. I would have called that my low point, except for I purposely did not see most of the bugs. So.
Yeah.
All right. You're very apt, though. That is upsetting.
Yeah, it's rough.
One other quick low point is, like, I really didn't like the way the daughter bullied her husband into murdering people. She was like, I get that she's the mastermind, but he's like, babe, maybe we don't. And she's just like, go kill that woman. I was just like, this poor guy, kind of. He seemed a little bit, I mean, he did murder people, so he's bad. But he seemed a little bit of a victim to her machinations, which is sad.
I kind of thought he was going to turn on her for that reason.
Right? I kind of got that vibe, too.
Yeah.
But he just did her bidding.
And look where it got him. Shot by his own kids.
So this movie opened strong and closed strong with some
Yeah,
what
we
the
just had
fuck
issues
moments.
with some of the middle.
Some of it.
So in terms of quotes, I have one.
Okay.
And that's only because I looked on the IMDb page and there are two. And one of them is Simon and entomologist guy, who apparently his name was Paolo, having their discussion about whether killing bugs is murder. So I'm just skipping that because no one cares. But Anna says, by the way, Anna is the daughter. I've also just realized that. Anna says, the clouds are swirling. There will be tears shed over the bay.
So dramatic.
Foreshadowing. The end. No quotes of interest in this movie.
I actually wrote down a quote. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. I have one. You share yours first.
What if we have the same one? It was from, I think it was Brunhilde. When the boys were, like, being annoying or whatever, she said to one of them, you are full of hot dogs and Cadillacs and you have no music in your soul.
Whoa.
I was like, that is an insult. I love it. I'm using
think they ate hot dogs earlier?
I think it's because they're Americans. So she's like, you're just full of hot dogs and Cadillacs.
That's baller. Yes, Broomy coming through.
Oh, right. And weren't they like talking about like classical music composers too? They're mentioning a bunch of European composers. So that's probably...
I didn't even realize they were Americans.
Yeah, the two men, I think, were Americans, and the two women were European. One was German, and one was, I think, French. Also, they kept calling Brunhilde, who was the German girl, a Viking, and I was like, a Viking? Is that the reference we make about German people? If you said a Viking to me, I would think you meant someone from, like, Norway.
Scandinavian, for sure.
Yeah, the quote that I wrote down was from one of the flashbacks. I may have misheard it. It's very possible. But I did hear the Countess, when she, like, stormed out of the room, rolled out of the room, she said, I'm late to my nap.
Boom!
I respected that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Another reason why I really identify with the Countess.
Yeah. Jackie's also late for her nap.
I live in the state of being late for my nap. Like, that's my general baseline mood. Oh,
Yeah.
she's so cool.
So for trivia, I couldn't even find what the budget or the box office was. Jen, were you able to track down any numbers for it?
No, sorry, I didn't look that up.
Oh, but I do have a couple pieces of trivia. They used a child's wagon for a lot of the tracking shots. Again, this had a very low budget. I do know that. One of the promotional gimmicks that they used was that every ticket holder for the movie had to pass through what they called the final warning station, which was basically someone saying that this will be the last shock film you'll ever want to see. So it was one of those guys. Most of the locations belonged to production or crew members. So, and then there also was no forest or any kind of woods anywhere around any of these buildings. So they would just like stick like twigs and branches in front of the camera to like try to make it look like it was a forest. And apparently it was quite hilarious to watch. We kind of talked about kind of the grandfather of the modern slasher, which I mean makes me like it a little more. It's kind of cool. Actually, that's all I got.
I had one piece of trivia from this magazine. I just thought it was interesting. It said, like, the movie's original title was Chain Reaction, and when it was released in North America, it was released a couple different times and a couple different titles, so that might be why it's hard to track down budgets, or, like, a box office, sorry. But in one of them, in 1972, it was released under the title Last House on the Left Part 2, selling it as a sequel to Wes Craven's 1970 hit. So they were pretending it was a sequel to Last House on the Left, which it is not.
Yes, I did see that. I also saw that this movie in general has, like, the most alternate titles of, like, any movie.
Yeah, like I said, it was released under multiple titles at different points, which is
Nerve
weird.
Twitch of Death, I think, was one.
Yes. Cool.
Jen, tell us about 1971.
So, a lot of people say the 70s is kind of the best decade for movies, and there were a lot of classics that came out in 71. So we have Clockwork Orange, French Connection, Dirty Harry, Harold and Maude. So the top box office movie was Fiddler on the Roof. Is that a musical, Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
That means you won. French Connection, Diamonds Are Forever, Dirty Harry, Last Picture Show. And then French Connection was kind of the big Oscar movie that year, directed by William Friedkin, who also did The Exorcist. But that was 1971.
What are we on now?
Ratings.
Right.
How do you rate this film, Jackie? How many stars?
Oh, we're changing the ratings.
Oh boy.
5 stars.
So I
What
wrote
do you
my
rate out of? Sorry.
10.
Hello, Jen. Welcome to the podcast.
I completely forgot how we run our podcast. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you. Okay, so I wrote my ratings right after because I wanted to have like a off-the-cuff rating, not give myself time to think of it or even discuss it rating. So my off-the-cuff rating was enjoyment 2 out of 10. I said I enjoyed basically nothing, but there were little moments of kind of, this isn't terrible. So like the mosquito POV, Broomhilda's wild adventure off by herself, things like that. But overall, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't get it, didn't follow it. Nothing about it really was my type of movie, unfortunately. In quality, I wrote 0. I was mad. I wrote, this movie had bad blood. Made me angry. And I also wrote, no music. So clearly I did not see this movie the way Austin did. And just for the record, I want to say I didn't hate the music. It went completely past me. It never occurred to me that there was music. So I feel neutral to the no music.
Really
but I just didn't like, it's not my style of movie. I didn't like the effects.
Yeah.
I didn't like the filmography because again, it was a bunch of blank faces and non-reactions to events that would make you react more than you've ever reacted in your entire life. So I didn't get what I was trying to see, and what I expected to see was nothing there. So to me, I didn't find it had any redeeming quality, unfortunately.
I had a hard time getting through this one. This was long. It wasn't. It was like 86 minutes, but I felt every one of those minutes. I think for enjoyment, is pretty low. Yeah, like a 2, about the same. There was just nothing for me to latch onto. There was like you said, like little moments that here or there that were good. I liked the kills for the most part, I guess. And I mean, I like the fact that it's like one of the first, and like, but yeah, 2, I think, for enjoyment and quality. I mean, that dubbing thing really, and especially knowing that they're just saying nonsense. Like, what the fuck? I don't approve. So I don't know. I'll give it like a 4. I feel like that's being really generous. Like, I want to give it lower than that, but I don't know. I try to be as objective as I can be in this. And I guess it had enough of an influence, which means it was like well done enough that it had a pretty big influence on the genre. So I guess I'll go 4.
All right. It's hard to know what my enjoyment was, because like I said, for a lot of the movie, I just thought I had missed something, so I wasn't necessarily blaming the movie for it. So I think you guys were a lot more frustrated than I was, because I was just like, this will make sense once I figure it out. And I was like, maybe I'll have to rewatch the beginning to see what I missed. I didn't realize that I just hadn't missed anything and that the movie was just confusing.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was as angry at it as you guys were. So because of that, I didn't feel as, like, anti the movie. I felt like it did take a while for everything to fall into place and me to understand what was happening. So I don't know. There were some pretty good kills. I'll give it like a enjoyment, like a 4 or a 5, kind of middle of the road, I guess. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't awful. And then quality, that's where we're getting into, like, it was obviously influential and it was a big deal. So I think that kind of bumps it up for me, like knowing that it was kind of the blueprint in a lot of ways and being able to see the influence, that made me enjoy what they did, if that makes sense. So I think quality, I'll give it like a 6.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's Bay of Blood.
I guess the friendometer is pretty green?
Yeah.
Super green?
We're good.
Not offended that I hated this movie?
No, not at all.
I also find it weird that I didn't hate it like the way I've hated other movies. It was like a completely nothing movie.
I'm glad it was just a slasher, honestly. Like, I think I was expecting it. Maybe when you said niche Italian subgenre, I was like, oh no.
And I showed you the poster.
Yes, exactly. So maybe I just went in expecting something super artsy and, like, not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but I was kind of happy to see it was just a slasher.
Yeah.
All right.
That's that, you guys. That's that. Oh my gosh. I know a huge blind spot I have. I don't know if you guys have it. I've never seen Point Break. There we go. Point Break. I've meant to watch it for years, and I feel like I've built it up so much, and I've heard so many, like, iconic things about it that I've never wanted to watch it, but for you guys, I will.
Okay. Cool. Well, this was an experience. It always is. Again, we still kind of stayed on the same page. Anyways, thanks so much for listening. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at I Hate Your Taste, or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website that's IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com, and there are links there to our merch. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support us in any way. You can find us there if you just search I Hate Your Taste in Movies on buymeacoffee.com. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.